Greetings to you all from the Universal Webinar. Welcome to our today's webinar on topic social linguistics, language, identity, and framing. I, behalf of the whole team of the Universal Webinars, welcome you here. Just before starting the formal proceedings from our today's guest, Professor OSMAR POGOY LABAJO, I will start with his introduction. Sir Usman Dobejo is actually an international awardee as distinguished professor and well-known English teacher. He has co-authored books and written some journals. He has been teaching English for 13 years in the Philippines and Spain now. At present, he has been studying a short course in Rhetoric at Harvard University online under Edx Educational Platform, which is much great. Now, before I over to Sir Osmar, I want to just make something clear about our today's sections. We have two sections. The first one is of a presentation section. The second one is of the question answer section. As I have already narrated in our posters and our advertisements, that we select one of our guests from the active participants. So today we have a very active participant from our previous webinar, Mr. Joey, who will also join us after the presentation for the question answer section. So I also suggest you all that be active today and try to grab this opportunity to be with us live in the next webinar. And now something about the webinar proceedings, that when Sir will finish the presentation, I will ask you to subscribe the YouTube channel. As you will click on the subscribe button, after 2 to 3 minutes, you will get a feedback form link. As you will go on that link, you have to fill that form. After filling that form, you will be able to get the certificate. One thing I want to clear again, those who will fill the feedback form, only those will get the certificate. Those who will not fill it, they will not get it. They will not get the certificate of the webinar. This thing has happened a lot of time, that you do not fill the feedback form and then ask for the certificate, which make us confused that did you attend our webinar or not. So you have to fill the feedback form at any cost. So just remember it. I will send its link after Sir will complete the presentation and in between the question answer section. But before that, you have to subscribe our channel, follow our page, and just have to remain in touch with us to know about the certificates. Now I will over to Sir Professor Osman Labejo for the further proceedings. Sir, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sir Sammy, for such a warm and short introduction. Hello, everyone. How would I say it in different languages? Assalamualaikum. What else? Hola, namaste, o mabuhay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those who are with us right here today from different parts of the world. I greet you in different languages because aside from this webinar is participated by some participants from different parts of the world, this webinar is also intended to all teachers who teach language, not only those who teach English, but those who teach language, whether it be Filipino, Urdu, Hindi, whatever language you teach. This webinar is very applicable to you. Okay, so that's why I'm greeting you in different languages. As a teacher, we teachers, as a teachers or as a speaker in different webinars, I usually begin my talk with some motive questions. Do you do that in your class? Okay, let us first be guided by some of the motive questions geared towards understanding the main point of our webinar today. So, actually, I am writing in my mobile phone. I have here 4 questions that would serve as the motive questions, and this will be answered as we go along in our webinar today. I am writing here in my mobile phone so that I can say it very smoothly instead of organizing it in my mind. Okay, the first question is, why do racism and racial stereotyping continue? Is it because of the class? Is it because of the color? or it has something to do also with a linguistic feature. Okay, so question number 2. Why do some people of certain group have the feeling and thought of ethnocentrism, chauvinism, and even xenophobia towards other race or groups? What's the connection of linguistics to this issue? Okay, question number 3. Why do some people mock and ridicule the way other people speak in English based on their accents influenced by their native language? And even in the Philippines, there are some people in my country, to be honest, there are some people who make fun at those people who speak Tagalog in hard and strong accent. Even in the UK, even in the UK, there is what we call job discrimination. Job discrimination is evident when British people from southern UK speak in non-rhotics. When we say non-rhotic, it's like they speak the word with R sounds because in London they speak the non-rhotics. Okay. Then number 4, the last question, why does speaking manner create misunderstanding even if we both speak the same language? This results in fact, those are the questions. This results in fact to continued hatred, what else? Grudges, division among people, and judgment in our lives, even in our souls. Okay? So let us take this webinar something not only informative, but something that is life-changing, something that is inspiring to all of us. Okay? All such mentioned world problems that I mentioned earlier, they continue and predominantly exist, which somehow yield negative impact on the lives and minds of people nowadays. They even distract society and divide people. Now, why do these issues continue? It is because a lot of people are ignorant, whose minds are closed towards learning other cultural dimensions, and more especially for not accepting the cultural dimensions of others without understanding that their manner of speaking is grounded on cultures. And with these issues, language and how it is communicated plays a very important role. In fact, a number of world issues are brought by miscommunication, misinterpretation, what else, and different understanding of languages. That is why today, in less than an hour, I want more than an hour, but since I am only given less than an hour, let us focus on how language gives impact in shaping culture and identity, and how we should use such language in bridging the gap of cultural diversity. In this webinar titled, Sir Sami, can you show us the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, sir, sure.
The seminar titled Social Linguistics, Language, Identity, and Framing for a while. Okay, now let us be guided by the learning goals. These are the 3 learning goals that we are hopefully going to achieve today. Number 1, to communicate with people effectively from different cultural backgrounds. Second, to foster unity, equality, and tolerance among people of diverse cultural dimensions. And the third goal is to unravel how language connects and separates people. Okay, I have here in the next slide a photo. As teachers, I'm not only talking to teachers here because there are some participants here who are principals, who are superintendents in a certain division, who are curriculum developer also. And these are very useful for you, to, especially in crafting or how do we call this one, in organizing the language curriculum. Okay. In this photo, as you can see, I know you have your own interpretation there about the photo, but I don't have to ask you like how I ask in the classroom because this does not require interaction. Okay. They said that in order for us to be united and to understand one another, we need to have one language that everyone speaks. Do you agree with this? Now, do not answer me. You just answer me silently there. Okay, again, they said that in order for us to be united and to understand one another, we need to have one language that everyone speaks. Do you agree with me? Well, maybe we understand each other, but it doesn't mean that we are united. Partly, I don't agree with this question because even in our family, in our workplace, even with our friends, we speak the same language, but we argue and we create disputes. Even if we live in our provinces, in our places, in our localities, speaking one common language, but we are still divided with conflicts and misunderstanding. So speaking the same language won't guarantee unity and understanding, but it is how to use it, when to use it correctly, where to properly use it, and to whom it should be used. This is where pragmatic skills are given value, which is the most important thing when we communicate with one another. Okay, now I am really fond of giving quotations or giving reflection before I begin the class or the webinar or even after I give the webinar. But since for me reflection is very important, I am putting it before I start the webinar. Let us ponder on this. If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his ear. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart, just according to Nelson Mandela. Second, all of these revolve around the topic that we are going to talk about today. Okay, the second one, the essence of cross-cultural communication has more to do with releasing responses than with sending messages. Is it enough for us to receive response or feedback without accepting much explanation about it? Okay, the third one is it is not our differences that divide us. Do you agree with me? It is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. That's according to Lord. Okay, now let's have the core point of this webinar, language and culture. How do language and culture influence each other? I don't have to read the paragraph, but you can just read it silently there. But what I want to do now, because the time is limited, in every paragraph, let me just give a concrete example or experience. So how do language and culture influence each other? Why are they inseparable? Let me give you a concrete example. In Burma, Burma is a former name of Myanmar. Okay, in Burma, there is a so-called greeting. This greeting goes like this. Have you eaten yet? Have you eaten yet? Are you done eating? This is a so-called greeting in Burma. When visitors or guests arrive in a certain community, they would be welcomed by this question. Have you eaten yet? Now, my question to you, when you hear this question, without knowing that it's a greeting, not merely a literal question, how do you respond to this? I think we have our different responses to the question, right? Okay. So, for example, in Burma, when Americans are asked by this question, they would maybe think that, um, why does he ask me this way if I have eaten yet? So they are thinking that the Americans they're being invited to eat something. So when they ask, have you eaten yet? American people would think, he's inviting us or she's inviting us to eat. So it's an invitation. But in reality, in Burma, when you are asked, have you eaten yet? This is just actually a greeting, not an invitation. Do you see the difference? Okay, the response is like the framing, the linguistic framing is, oh, I think I am invited. But in reality, the linguistic frame of the Burman people is that it's not an invitation, but it's just a greeting that you are welcomed here. Do you see there might be misunderstanding because of the question? Because language is really grounded in culture. Okay, one concrete example, because I have a friend who is in Java, Indonesia. He one time we talked about this and he shared with me a certain experience. Okay, in Java, Indonesia, Javanese people, there is a certain group in Java that they would greet you or welcome you in this question, where are you going? They welcome you with this greeting, where are you going? The way we understand that, where are you, where are we going? Why does he ask us where we are going? It's none of his business. Right? But this is actually a greeting in Java. When people ask you where are you going, it's a greeting of welcoming you. But for example, when Western people might hear this greeting, they respond maybe silently, it's none of your business. You don't have the right to interfere in our action where we are going. So do you see the different framing, the different linguistic framing of how it is interpreted and how it is conveyed? So you see, even if these people speak English, even if these people speak one language, but they have different linguistic frame, how they interpret and how it is conveyed. But that is one thing that we have to be very careful about, because it might lead to miscommunication or misunderstanding. Okay, next. I'm so sorry. Okay, the next core point is this: what is the relationship between language, culture, and identity? They're actually inseparable. When I had immersion with people, I met Moroccan. I met people from Latin America here in Spain. When we had our immersion in Portugal, I was in Portugal last week. I had an immersion with people from different races, and the way they speak English, I can easily identify. Ah, yeah, this person is Portuguese because of his accent. Ah, this person is Chinese because of his accent. The way we speak English. Sometimes we are identified by the way we speak. However, it doesn't mean that it's really our identity. The way we speak reflects on our identity, reflects on our personality, because sometimes our manner of speaking, our use of words depend on whom we talk to, depend on whom we speak with. Sometimes I am not using my own language. I am using different language. I am using different manner of expression in order for me to reach the goal when I speak to someone. It's not my own language, it's not my own identity. But here, the point here is the relationship between language, culture, and identity, the cultural identity. Let me give you an example, a concrete situation. Okay, in London, there are Pakistani and Indian food servers. They are working in London as food servers in a certain restaurant, okay, in one of the restaurants in London. Then what happened? They received complaint from their supervisors and the other British customers. And because of this complaint, Indian and Pakistani people, they thought that they are discriminated against by the British. What do you think? Why are they thinking that they are discriminated because of the complaints? Now, here is the situation. When the customers in a certain restaurant, in this restaurant, when the customers ordered for a meat course, because there is fish, there's meat. So when the customers ordered for a meat course, the servers, as part of their job, the servers are expected to ask gravy. Gravy is like a sauce that they can dip the meat. Okay, so they're expected to ask. The servers are expected to ask gravy, which means do you need gravy or not? It's like that. However, what happened in the situation in this scenario? South Asian, I'm referring to Pakistani and Indian servers because there are also British servers, not only Pakistani and Indian. So when South Asian servers like Pakistani and Indian, they would say gravy. It's falling intonation. However, the British servers would say gravy, it's rising intonation. Do you see the difference with the falling intonation used by the South Asian servers and the rising intonation used by the British servers when they are asking for a gravy if the customers like gravy? Okay, let's focus on the intonation. British customers think that the way South Asian servers ask are rude, impolite, and uncooperative because of the intonation. Because of the falling intonation, the British customers think these people are impolite, these people are rude, these people are uncooperative because of the intonation. Because being asked gravy, gravy in falling intonation implies it has its own implication among British people. If it's falling intonation, it has its own implication. The implication of the utterance there is gravy, which means this is gravy. Take it or leave it. So that's how it is implied, the way British people interpret the intonation. On the other hand, when British servers use gravy rising intonation, in rising intonation sounds respectful and cooperative to the British customers because this implies, would you like a gravy? It's really a question. Would you like a gravy? Gravy, that's how they understand it. So you see, because of the intonation, people create judgment and stereotypes. Okay, that's how language, culture, and identity are connected with each other. Why? Why falling intonation? Based on the study, because yes or no questions among South Asian people are in falling intonation. Okay, so that's how sometimes we are identified by our own accent. Even in the Bible, when Peter, the disciple of Jesus, was asked by the soldier, "Are you one of the disciples of Jesus?" And Peter said, "No." "Are you sure that you are not one of the disciples?" Peter denied no 3 times. And then Peter asked, "Why are you asking me if I am the disciple of Jesus?" Then the soldier replied, "Because your accent, your Galilean accent gives you away." So that's one thing that we are identified because of our accent identity. Okay, next. The next core point is, what is the relationship between language thought and culture? What we speak is hardwired in our brain. Okay? What we speak is hardwired in our brain. So let me give you a situation. There is an American student, a scholar, who went to Germany. And this student has mastered also German. He could speak German. And then he is even very good at international affairs. He studied everything before he went to Germany. And then when this American student went to study in Germany, what happened? Everything went wrong. Even if he speaks German, everything went wrong. Why? When this American student started to talk about American politics, the German interrupted and overlapped him. Hmm, why is it? What do you think is the reason why the German interrupted him or overlapped him? Is it because of the topic? How do you conclude this? And you know what? When German overlapped and interrupted this American guy thought that German are rude, German are arrogant, and German are opinionated. That's how he thought. That's how he thinks because German people overlapped him and interrupted him. Actually, this is how the American student thought about that. However, when this American student tried to stop from talking because he is overlapped, he is interrupted, therefore he stopped from talking, because of course usually American, they follow the so-called politeness the so-called politeness, like we should the turn taking, you know, that the turn taking, I should stop talking if someone is talking. If it's your time to talk, you listen to me, and it's your time to talk, it's time for me to listen to you. That's turn taking. So when this American student stopped from talking because he is overlapped, uninterrupted. The German students thought that this American is uninformed, apathetic, boring, not interactive in conversation. Do you see? Each of them have bad conclusions towards one another. The American student thinks our German are arrogant. Germans are opinionated because of overlapping him. On the other hand, the German also think that this American student is boring, apathetic, and interactive because he stops talking. So how do you conclude that? Who is good or who is bad in the situation? There is no rude from German and there is no boring or uninteractive from American between the two of them, between the two parties. Listen, when German overlaps and uses belligerent tone in the conversation, that implies that they show enthusiasm and eagerness to talk to you. It's not actually overlapping, interrupting because they are rude, but they overlap, they interrupt you because they show enthusiasm. They're enthusiastic to talk to you. Okay, they want the conversation to keep going and to be lively. Okay, so what is lively? But the problem here, what is lively conversation for German is thought of as a verbal attack and unpleasant argument by this American student. So to conclude, they're not actually rude. It's only a matter of understanding the different linguistic frame. Okay, so this is very important. This is where different framing arises. Okay, framing is actually the interaction by signaling to listeners how they should interpret and what is said, whether it is a chat, whether it is an argument, anger, what else, or more. So the framing in the situation, in the scenario, the framing made by German to overlap indicates that the American should continue talking, not to stop from talking. But the problem here is the American has different framing, which is to stop talking because the Germans are overlapping. You see, because of the different framing, linguistic framing, each party has made stereotypes with one another. And I think we experience that most of the time. That is why it's good to study more about linguistics for us to cultivate good relationship with each other. Okay, the next part is complementary schismogenesis. I think you are very much familiar with this in linguistics. This is actually coined by Gregory. Okay, you might be wondering this complementary schismogenesis. You might be wondering why people who talk to each other, frequently do not understand each other even within the family or friends. Have you ever tried in your life, have you ever tried asking yourself after the conversation, what have I done? What did I say? Why she or he got angry at me? I did not do nothing. I did not say something bad. Have you experienced that? This is because of the different styles in conversation that is understood differently by the other interlocutor or by the other speaker in the conversation. And if this continues, the schismogenesis continues within the conversation, then the more frustrated they become, the more frustrated we become if we experience this. This is what we call complementary schismogenesis. You see there the meaning, and I think there's no need for me to read that. Okay, let me give you another situation. In the US, there is one American man, they are both students, American boy and a Japanese girl, talking to each other. They are high school students. The conversation goes like this. The American man says or asks the Japanese girl, would you like to have lunch with me? This is the question. Would you like to have lunch with me? And then the Japanese girl answered, that's nice, but maybe one day. Now I'm asking you, what do you think is in the mind of the Japanese girl? Does she like to have lunch or no? Her response was, That's nice, but maybe one day. We cannot think what she is really thinking, because in our own cultures we have different ways of interpreting this answer, this response from the Japanese girl. So because of this answer, that's nice, but maybe one day. Because of this answer, she left the door open, giving the American man another chance to ask again. Then the latter, the American boy, asks again, "Can we have lunch?" Second question. And another different days. "Can we have lunch?" Then the Japanese girl answered, "That's an idea. Lunch is nice." That's her answer. "That's an idea. Lunch is nice." She did not say yes. She did not say no. Only this utterance. "That's nice. That's an idea. Lunch is nice." So the American boy was confused. He was befuddled whether the Japanese likes to have lunch with him or not. Therefore, he directly asks the Japanese girl, "Are you trying to tell me?" This is the question. "Are you trying to tell me you never want to have lunch, or should I keep asking you about this?" So the Japanese girl answered, "I do not know." And this third reply by the Japanese girl implies that she doesn't like to have lunch. And her response, since from the beginning, already implied that she doesn't like to have lunch with him. That is why she got confused. The Japanese girl got confused. Why the American keeps on asking me, even if I already replied to him that I don't like to have lunch with him. But the American doesn't understand her indirectness, because the Japanese girl was indirect of what she is talking about. This is indirectness. I think we have experienced that many times, that sometimes we are trying to imply something in indirect way. Okay, then this is somehow misunderstood by the people whom we talk to, whom we speak with. Okay, indirectness done by the Japanese girl. That's why there was misunderstanding. Okay, because are you familiar, in Japan there is what we call sashi. Sashi is a term, correct me if I am wrong. Sashi is a term, it's like a gesture that is not implied. When they say something, it's not they are trying to imply anything. It's indirect. And this manner is considered educated and polite in Japan. So maybe it's because of this, rooted in her culture, that's why she was trying to be indirect instead of being direct, to say, "No, I don't like to have lunch with you." Okay, so you see the difference. Because of the cultural dimensions, it affects on their manner of speaking, on their conversation. Okay, the next core point is their conversational rituals. This is the meaning. It is how one expects an interaction to go in its totality, and how she expects utterances to follow in sequence. Okay, let me give you an example. This is not an example, not only an example, but a situation, an experience by my friend. Okay, in a car, there is one man in the U.S. There is one man and a woman who are having conversation in the car. Then the woman asks the man, "Are you thirsty?" This is the question. "Are you thirsty? Do you want to drink something? Are you thirsty?" Then the follow-up question is, "Would you like to stop for a drink?" This is the question of the woman. How do you reply to that? In your different cultures, in your different norms, because we have our different interpretations, how to respond to this question. Then the man replied, "No." Only the word "no." There's no more follow up sentences. Only the word "no," because this implies that the man is not thirsty. Both of them are Americans. They don't come from different cultures. They don't come from different countries. Okay, so the man replied "no." Then the woman got irritated by the thrifty one word response, because she did not expect a yes or no answer to her question. But what she expects is that the man should ask her back, "Do you want to?" Sometimes in our lives, when we are trying to ask someone, we are expecting this person to reply us the way how we want them to reply to us. This should be the reply that she wants to respond. This should be the respond that I want her to say. Have you experienced that? But of course, we are not controlling the minds of the people, the mind of the person whom we talk to. So considering in this situation, but unfortunately, this is not how the man expects to say. The woman's question in the given scenario, the woman's question is actually an invitation. Are you thirsty? Would you like to stop for a drink? The woman's question is actually an invitation, not literally a question that requires a yes or no answer. Her question implies much conversation with the man, leading the latter to make decision what to drink. He wants to engage the man in a conversation instead of replying only yes or no. So frustration rises in the situation. Okay? Because in this case, a woman is more indirect than man. But not at all times that women are always indirect. It depends on the situation. It depends on the culture that we are into. Okay, so and the woman's question is actually an invitation. Do you see it, the difference? Okay, next, the next core point. This is the linguistic relativity. Okay, they said that culture is relative, so is language. Do you agree with me? Since it has been argued that language and culture are inseparable, the word lingua culture is coined by Michael Agar. So here is the meaning of lingua culture. I will just let you read the meaning there because it takes time for me to read it. So the claim that language shapes thinking is referred to as the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. I think you are very much familiar with this hypothesis in linguistics. Okay, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, whose proponents are the teacher and his student. Edward Sapir is the teacher and his student is Benjamin Whorf. Okay, talking about this hypothesis has its strong and weak forms. The strong form is known as the linguistic determinism. Here it is. You can see it in the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, the linguistic determinism is the strong point, and then the weak form is the linguistic relativity. The linguistic determinism states that there are things in our minds that we create even if they are not found in our language. We tend to create words and sounds arbitrarily. For example, are you very much familiar with the poem Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll? Okay, for the poem Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll uses words which are not found in the English language, even in the dictionary, like the borogoves. If you have read this, borogoves, what else? Bandersnatch, galumphing, and more. There are more words which are meaningless, but it's not meaningless in the poem. In the Philippines also, there is a language called Cebuano. I will give you a concrete example. We have a language called Cebuano in the Philippines, whose people use the word fling fling. I do not know if there are some Cebuanos who are attending with us right now. There is a word fling fling, which is not in the dictionary, which means an act of a sexual intercourse, which is not even found in our own dictionary and not spoken by all Cebuano, by all people. So this word is just created arbitrarily. So this example supports the idea that our thought sometimes controls the language we use, unlimited. This is in accordance to the linguistic determinism, the notion of the linguistic determinism. However, this theory is actually opposed by many modern linguists to stress out the other form, which is the linguistic relativity. You can see it over here. Okay. Linguistic relativity suggests that the structure of the language affects how people see the world. On the contrary, into linguistic determinism, which is the thought or mind that affects the language, this one is on the contrary. Okay, you consider the meaning. I will give you some examples of the linguistic in response or to support the notion of linguistic relativity. There is only one word, snow. Snow. You know snow. Okay. There's only one word snow in the English language, but of course, snow has its own types. But I'm not talking about the types and classification, but only the word, the morpheme, snow. Okay. There is one word snow in the English language. However, in the language of Inuit in northern part of the US, Alaska or some part of the in the northern part of the US, the word snow has its counterparts, different counterparts like wet snow, clinging snow, and frosty snow. Do you see the difference? Linguistic relativity. There are some words which can be translated from one language to another, but there is one word that has a different counterparts, many counterparts in different countries. Okay, another example, like the English verbs. The English verb tenses, as we all know that we have the past tense, the present tense, and the future tense. The English verb revolves around tenses. Even in Filipino, okay, it revolves around tenses, past, future, present. But the verbs in Burma, Malaysia, and I am no if I am not mistaken, in Javanese language, they don't have tenses. So they need to expound something when they use the verb. It has no conjugation that it's in the past, it's in the present, or it's in the future. It's not inflected. So they have to expound it in the sentence that it happens in the past, it happens in the present, and it happens in the future. So you see the difference. Okay, the coherent system. In Spanish, for example, because I'm here in Spain, the adjective comes after directly the noun to the noun. It modifies. For example, like the word una casa bonita. Una casa bonita, but in English is reversed. The adjective comes before the noun. It's like a beautiful house, but in Spanish, casa bonita. It's not bonita casa. Bonita is adjective, casa is a noun. Okay, so it's reversed in English. The adjective comes before the noun as beautiful house, kind person, tall mountains, and more, except you use a linking verb to complement the subject, such as the house is beautiful. It's another thing. Okay, another example. Since English is considered as an analytic language, when you speak of analytic, the grammatical meaning of the language is determined by the word order. Okay, in the contrary to the synthetic. Okay, English language, we usually observe SVO pattern. SVO, subject, verb, object. I cook spaghetti. I, subject, cook, verb, spaghetti, object. That's how it goes in English in most cases. On the other hand, in Japanese, it's reversed. Japanese is different. It's the SOV, subject, object, verb. Verb is the last, which literally, instead of saying, I cook spaghetti in English, in Japanese, it appears like, I spaghetti cook in English. But that's why it's not good to translate it literally or word for word because of the different structures, linguistic structures of the languages. Okay, one last thing. Are you very much familiar with this? This is a very amazing fact that I have just learned a few months ago. In some, it's actually a part of Africa. In Congo, which speaks Chiluba. Chiluba is a language used in Congo. They speak Chiluba. It has a word which is considered by the linguists as the most difficult word to translate in different languages in the world. And you know what the word is? The word is ilunga. Ilunga, which means a person who is ready to forgive any abuse for the first time, but never in the second and third time. Do you have this word counterpart in your own languages there? Those who are attending right now? Ilunga, a person who is ready to forgive any abuse for the first time, but never in the second and third time. Tell me, what word is this in your language? If you have. If you don't have, then maybe uh, the claim of linguists is correct that this language is the most difficult word to translate in the whole world. Okay, next, let's talk about. Let me check the time. Let me check on the time. Oh, I stuck a lot. It's already 1:45. Okay, the rules of rapport. Sometimes it's difficult to engage in a conversation, especially with people of different cultures, which you do not know if you are if what you are saying is right or appropriate, or maybe you misinterpret the intention, or your intention is being misunderstood. That is why it is important to know the cultural background of people. However, it is also important to consider some ways in dealing with this. Here, I am introducing you the rules of rapport, but I'm not telling you this is effective in all manner, because what is polite in our own country can be impolite in the other culture or in the other country. Okay, but let me introduce to you the rules of rapport coined by Robin Lacob in 2004, which emphasizes the different styles of politeness. When we speak of politeness, it's not about literally politeness like greeting, good morning, good afternoon, are you okay? Politeness in linguistics actually refers to a technical term that is the use of word in appropriate manner, appropriate culture. Okay? In balancing several interactive goals that we are trying to achieve. So, in the rules of rapport and politeness, let us consider this question. Okay, think about this question. Would you like something to drink? This is the question. If someone asks you, would you like something to drink? What would be your reply? Especially if the person is not your friend or can be your friend, or maybe you are in different place or in different country and you are asked by this, would you like something to drink? I know each of us there, we have our different answer depending on our norms, right? Depending on our culture, if this answer is appropriate or not. Okay. For example, answer number one, response number one. Would you like something to drink? First response, no thanks. No thanks. We usually say that. Okay. Despite being thirsty, you are saying no thanks. Okay. This answer actually belongs to rule number one, which is don't impose. You're not imposing. Maybe you're afraid if I say yes, maybe I am impolite. If I say no, or I am demanding, what is this? You're confused. So you're not imposing. This is rule number one. Okay, next, for giving options in rule number two, the same questions. Would you like something to drink? And then your answer is, I'll take whatever you have. Okay, I'll take whatever you have. This belongs to rule number two, which is giving option. So it's you are neutral. Okay, whatever you have, I take it. Whether it is soda, water, whatever you have, I accept it. And another politeness rule number two, which is giving option. Rule number three. Would you like to have? Would you like to have? Would you like something to drink? Response number three. Yes, thanks. Have you got a soda? So in the response number three, you are like somehow you're demanding, you are maintaining actually camaraderie. Yes, have you got a soda? Have you got water? So this belongs to rule number three, which is maintaining camaraderie. Sometimes in our family, when we even if we are not offered to have some drink, we just open directly the refrigerator and then drink something. This is another example of camaraderie. Okay, and some people would like to have camaraderie. If you are very frank, or if you are very direct to what you need, sometimes people would really appreciate that. But there are still some people who don't like this. If you are very frank and you are very direct of whatever you need. That's the relativity of culture. So in Greece, for example, in Greece, it is rude to accept food or drink the first time it is offered, but second time or third time can be. Okay. On the other hand, in some part, I have learned this from the book. On the other hand, in some part of the USA, it is typical to accept the first offer of food or drink, but second or third time, or the third offer may not be accepted for it sounds like an abuse. It's too much. Do you have like this in your own country? Or maybe we have different norms. Okay, in this scenario, when speakers in an interaction apply different rules of rapport and politeness norms, each may judge the other impolite. What if you do not impose, it is impolite or polite. If you give options, it can be polite or impolite to other, depending on how they interpret it. Okay, I will give you another concrete example here in Spain. When I was with my Spanish friends one time, I was eating something. I was eating something, and then, of course, we used to invite someone. In the Philippines, we are very polite to invite someone when we are eating. While there are people around us, we invite, do you like to eat? Please come with us, you eat. And then I apply this when I was with Spanish people. When I was eating, I was with Spanish friends, and I invited them. Would you like to eat? And then one Spanish answered no. Only the word no. He's not even saying thanks. But I did not think of it as something impolite because that's how they answer based on the question that I'm giving. The person has different linguistic frame. So that's why I should not think that this person is impolite. Okay, so we should be very open-minded on the different responses because each response has different linguistic frame. Okay, another thing with my student who is a Moroccan, one time in school when I asked him, "Do you like to eat?" And then he replied, "No." Why? Okay, I was shocked. Why he asked me why? That's it. So, but you don't have to think about it something as impolite. Okay, next because of the time constraint, let me just go smoothly. Intercultural communication, we are very much aware of this. The okay gesture in America has different meaning. To Japan, it's money. To Brazil, it's a rude gesture. Okay, I have to move it smoothly because of the time. I've got your nose. Look, the different interpretations from different countries around the world. Next, the V gesture. Look, okay, then the loser gesture, the thumbs up gesture, the come hither gesture. We should be very careful of our gesture because some gestures are not universal. The you are dead gesture, especially when we speak with people from different countries, we should be very careful of the gesture. The fingers crossed gesture, the horn fingers gesture. Okay, what else? Okay, I'm so sorry. Now, uh, since we see about the relativity of language, gestures, to end this talk, let us be reminded that language is constituted in culture. They're inseparable because language use is based upon the culturally agreed norms by one speech community. And there is an expression that is accepted but may not be appropriate, okay, to use in one culture or in another culture. Even in different aspects in our lives, we use language that is appropriate when we speak with people of different gender, people of different ages, what else, people of different social status, people of different in the religious sector, and even with the civil sector. This is because language exists only as it is shaped in culture. So we should not stereotype a group of people. This is one uh, thing that to wrap up, one moral lesson that we should learn from this webinar. We should not stereotype a group of people because of their manner of speaking. We should explore first and be open minded if one expression may seem offensive to us before we judge someone. Because some expressions may be offensive to us, but it is not implied offensively by others. Do you see it? Sometimes it is our own thoughts and interpretation that makes the expression offensive. Okay, as it is said by many linguists, language is meaningless. Language has no meaning unless it is used in the context. So we should understand the context and the situation first and know the cultural background of the people before we react, before we judge, before we conclude, before we do some stereotyping. So in order for us to foster harmonious and effective communication with others, we should know their cultures and norms as well as their linguistic elements, how they are used. Okay, this is actually how we cultivate unity despite diversity. Okay, and before I end my talk, allow me to say The effective communicator isn't the one who speaks good language. It is the one who wins the heart of the person from the other language. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. This was very great from Sir Osmar. And as I have already told to you that we will have a question answer section. And before the question answer session, I welcome my today's guest, Mr. Joey Arabi from the Philippines, who was very much active in our previous webinar. That's why he has given opportunity to be live here. How are you, Mr. Joey?
Yes, sir. Hello. Thank you, Sir Sammy, for the privilege to participate in this day's webinar. It is such an honor to be here with you online. And of course, to our speaker, Professor Osmar Labajo, I would like to express my very warm gratitude for our very meaningful webinar today. And to our participants from all over the world, I hope you learned a lot. Allow me to introduce myself first. I am Joey Arabe, taking a Bachelor of Secondary Education here in the Philippines. So, sir, am I allowed to ask my first question?
Yes, you can ask the question from Sir Joey. Now the every proceeding is over to you. You can ask the questions from Sir. Now you both can interact with each other for 5 to 10 minutes. Then we will take the question answer of our participants.
So, sir, Professor, my first question would be, because of the advent of technology and globalization, how can we avoid being dominated by other cultures? And, how can we ensure that they do not affect our identity?
Ah, I think you're trying to talk about like the situation about the endangerment of language, right? No, endangerment of language or something. The language extinction. In other words, is
Right.
that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yes, because nowadays a lot of languages are becoming extinct. In our country, in the Philippines, there are also a lot of languages that are becoming extinct because they are being dominated by the other language, which is English language. Okay, language extinction is the result of, you know, as what you mentioned, with the advent of technology, globalization, is the result of cultural assimilation and gradual abandonment of native language in favor of the foreign language, the lingua franca. Okay, so it's a very good question. How can we avoid this being dominated? Okay, I will give you. I think I can talk. I'm talking a lot about this. Okay, there is one professor in the Philippines in De La Salle University, who Dr. Dita. He talked about that language that is spoken by the millennials, by the young people nowadays, are highly adulterated. When you speak of highly adulterated, the language is being influenced by English. So instead of saying, for example, we have this in Filipino language, we have pakikuha ng aking bag doon sa table. Okay. Do you see the language? The Filipino language is in English. It goes like this. Can you get my bag from the table? Okay. So pakikuha ng aking bag doon sa table. So the language is being influenced by English, and this is what we call culturally adulterated language. So it is being already, how do we call it, mixed with other language. It's not anymore pure. So this is actually the one of the rudiment that language is about to die. So if language dies out in the future, if the language dies out, the future generation don't have any more some ideas or knowledge about our culture, our tradition. Okay, so the main point here is how to revive and preserve this, or to revitalize from being, how do we call this one you mentioned, being dominated by other languages. First thing is that we need to create recorded and printed resources. We need to do research and publish this. We need to do research about the language, so that, because language evolves from time to time, it really changes because of the globalization. In this pluralistic society, it really changes. So we need to do some studies about this, do some recording, interview some people, some we call the seasoned speakers, those who speak the native language. Then also, we also include some young people in order for us to determine the difference, how a certain language changes. What else? In order for us to revitalize, we should integrate in our curriculum and contextualize the native language in teaching English language. We should include MTB, multilingual based education in teaching English, like can be in grammar translation, or it can be to use our native language in literature by using the local colors, the native words, like that. Or can be also to use digital and social media outlets in order for us to announce to the world that this out, social media outlet, like having discussions, having lessons about a certain language, so that it remains revitalized. I don't know if I have answered your question.
Yes, sir. I actually take down some notes because,
You're already taking down notes.
yes,
I
sir.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Sir, my
Do you
next
have
question:
another question?
as a future educator, how can I facilitate the social linguistic competence of my learners?
It's a very practical question because this topic, social linguistic, is very much important and crucial as a teacher, because we are not only teaching grammar, we're not only teaching how to speak, how to write, but we are teaching how to communicate effectively and purposefully, which is the end goal of language teaching. It's a very good question. It's a very good question. How to facilitate communicative competence? As we all know, communicative competence has four competence areas. Remember, the linguistic. Help me remember. The social linguistic. What else? The discourse competence, and what is the last one? The strategic competence. So when we speak of the linguistic competence, it's about learning basically the structures, the morpheme, the morphosyntactic structures of the language. The social linguistic competence is about the social rules, how to use language appropriately based on politeness, and how to avoid it based on the taboo in a certain society. Discourse analysis, understanding the utterances, how it is implied, and the strategic competence is how to repair communication breakdown. So going back to your question, how to facilitate. It's easy. First, observe or establish a classroom, a language classroom that is positive, that is vibrant, that is non-threatening. You know what I mean? Because nowadays some students are afraid and shy to learn and to speak this English language because they're afraid to be corrected. That is why we should establish first a classroom that is non-threatening in order for us to level down or to decrease the affective filter. Remember in Stephen Krashen theory, affective filter hypothesis? Affective filter is an attitude of the learners towards learning the second language in which they are threatened, they're intimidated to learn the second language. So this is affective filter. We should lower down the affective filter by establishing positive and non-threatening classroom. Second, let them speak. This is about classroom management, how to facilitate them. Second, let them speak up, whether it is grammatically wrong, or if they pronounce it wrongly. Let them speak up. Okay, let them give them, how do we call this one, a feeling of, how do we call this one, liberty and freedom, that they can speak whatever they want to say, but without giving blatant corrections. Correction or giving corrective feedback is necessary, but not to give correction at all times. At all times, that would already interrupt them. You can give them correction in a way that is not, how do we call this? That is not obvious, overt. For example, let me give you a situation. One student uh, commits error in using the past form of the verb. You ask the student, why were you absent yesterday? And then the student replies, I am absent because I have fever. I am, because I have, instead of was and had. So grammatical error is there. So you don't have to say, that's wrong. It's not it's was. It's not have, it's had, because it's in the past. So you should not correct him that way. But you can correct him in a recasting way. You know what is recasting? It's a way of correcting the student that is not overt. For example, yesterday you were absent because you had fever. You know what? One time also when I was absent, I also had fever like you. So it's like that. You are just only trying to rephrase the sentence instead of giving direct correction. What else? When we talk about the strategies in facilitating a learner social linguistic competence, we can have role play. Role play is very important. Pantomime in which they speak, and then in role play, you are giving them situation like how do you handle the situation? If someone offers you a drink and then you don't like the drink, how do you handle that? So you can have role play in different situations based on your cultures in the Philippines, based on your cultures in Pakistan, in India. You should include cultural communication in role play. What else? You can ask them to watch videos about cultural traditions. And what else? Ask them watch videos or documentary about how people communicate with one another. What else? Communicate with other cultures. You can invite a foreigner in your class, for example. Yeah, you can invite a Chinese, a Japanese in your class, and then ask him to speak up. And then you can have immersion among each other for you to know, this is the for you to explore the politeness and taboos used by the Japanese, used by the Chinese. That's it. What else? There are many things. Using the digital tool, you can also ask them to what is that? To make a brochure to advertise a certain products in your locality in Zambales. What is the certain product? You can invite. What is the certain delicacy that you have? For example, give me one delicacy.
Sir,
In
singkamas
festival,
pie.
what is that?
Singkamas pie,
Na
sir.
Singkamas Fire, for example, you can even help the government or the tourism industry by making by asking your students to make a brochure and or ask them to cook that, and then they speak while they cook, and they have a live video about this, or they have it in TikTok, they have it in YouTube. They are utilizing millennials interest right now, and then you can also ask them to sell the food in a way that you're advertising the food in Facebook, Instagram. You're using social media outlet, and then they are writing a brochure, for example, and using different manners of uh, inviting people. It is also one way of testing your students to be competent in persuasive communication. If they can persuade the customer to buy the product, so what language should be used? Like that. So communicative language teaching is also very important. I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. This would really help me in my pre-service teaching.
Okay,
So
if you
now we will take the question and answer of participants. But before that, thank you, Mr. Joey, for joining us. I hope
thank
you
you
will
so much,
be.
Joey, for the time and for the question. I hope I have taught you something.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Keep in
Thank you,
touch.
Joey.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Now we have some questions from the participants, but before taking the question, I want to make one thing clear to our participants that yes, we will share the link of our feedback form with you, but just wait, have a patience. As sir will start the question answer section, we will send you the feedback form link in the comment section in between that section. So wait for the link. And also, before sending you the link, I will say you that click on the subscribe button, because if you will not click on that link, the link will not on that button, the link will be not visible to you. So click on the subscribe button, that then the link will be visible to you. So now we are, sir, going to take our first question. So the questions will be on the screen. As you complete the answer, you just say that I have given the answer, then I will move to another question. So this is the first one, sir.
Do you think ESP is a proof of separating language from culture? English for specific purposes. Actually, it doesn't separate because when we teach ESP, we are talking about the different fields in the areas of work, for example, whether it be medicine, politics, whether it be law, what are science or technology. In every entity that I am talking about, culture is always there. For example, where this is what we call, there is also what we call cultural jargon or cultural nuance or parlance in every field that we are into. In medicine, there is a so-called word or cultural word that is used in medicine. In law, in education as well, there are certain words that are used according to the cultural parlance or jargon of a certain field. So from the question, separating, it doesn't separate because culture is always with us. Okay, it doesn't, how do we call this one? Leave us. When we speak of culture, it's not only about the races, it's not only about the traditions, but it's also about within the family, we have our own culture. My brother has his own culture. I also have my own culture, the way I think, and it reflects the manner of speaking. So culture is always with us, it doesn't separate. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, this one is the second one, sir.
Yeah, lingualism a good thing? Anyway, we cannot avoid that because it really exists. It's inevitable because we are living in a multicultural world, in a pluralistic society. So multilingualism, for example, here in Spain, I am teaching with students who are multilingual. They come from different countries, Latin America, Morocco, Spain, UK. So is lingualism a good thing? In what aspect? So I only have to say yes or no to this question. So, what happened? So, multilingualism is actually good because it gives us the time to celebrate our diversity. So, we are now
So
in the
there
second.
is, so
We are
there
now in
is
the second
third.
question. On the third question, it gives us time to, or it gives us avenue to celebrate our diversity and give respect to different cultural background. So I think it's good.
So here's
Can
the
we
question.
define a global language referring to a universal relativity? If yes, and if the response is English, do we may lose our identity by the overuse? Oh, okay. This one is a very good question. When we speak English, even if it's not our language, even if it's not our native language, it doesn't mean that we lose our own identity. Because when we speak the second language or a foreign language, which is English, inevitably we cannot avoid that we apply our first language in the manner of speaking, in our intonation. We apply it when we speak the second language, so it doesn't lose. Aside from that, what should we do in order for us not to lose our own identity by using English? English is not actually the language of the native speakers anymore, but English is already the language of the world. We have what we call world Englishes. We have already the legitimacy of English in the Philippines, in some parts of the world. So English is already the language of the world. So we don't lose our own identity when we overuse it, because it's not about, when we speak English, it's not about making much, how do we call this one, value on British and American culture, but it's about, we can speak English by giving focus on our own identity. We can teach our literature, we can teach our local history, we can teach our local literature through the use of English. So we cannot lose our own identity because we can integrate our values, our cultures when we teach language and literature, even if English language is used. Thank you,
So
Nadia.
here is another one.
What can you say about English only policy? This one is actually, there are a lot of studies about this. Some significant studies from different empirical evidence of different domains show that it can be good, it can be also bad. Okay, and what can you say about this? But the question is only what can you say, no? It's not about if it's good or bad. English only policy sometimes with the students whose English is a foreign language, it like gives them a threat. Oh, we are deprived of speaking our native language, only the English language. So it like gives threat on the part of the students. On the other hand, the English only policy also gives a lot of benefits, especially to those students who can already speak English. It gives them deep or thorough immersion to use the language communicatively. So that's it. It can be good, threatening, it can be bad, strengthening.
So,
But do not use English only, excuse me, I would like to add to Dan, do
yes,
not
yes,
only
yes.
use the English only policy as a form of punishment because, oh my goodness, way back a few years ago, um, um, I am guilty of this because I used English before, a long time ago, but I am bothered by my conscience. I know I'm not doing this anymore. Because of the policy of the certain school, I adhered to the policy. I obeyed to the policy that if they speak the native language, they have to pay. They are sanctioned to pay some money, and it's not good. Do not use English only policy as a form of punishment in order for them to speak up. Okay, it only adds burden. Thank you. Then Uvinia.
There we have a one comment from, I think it is in Filipino. I couldn't get it. That, so should I show that to you, or just we should leave it?
Okay, okay.
Okay, we are leaving it. Here is another question.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Kim. A lot of people see learning which is only. Um, yeah, because they are thinking that if we learn English language, we can work easily. If we are good in English, we can land a job overseas. Okay, actually, I will give you another example. Here in Spain, I when they ask you to work here in Spain, English language is not a qualification. Okay. However, considering that language is considered or that is used by a lot of countries, can be the lingua franca as well. So it can be also, we also need to be well equipped with the use of language, with the use of English language. However, it doesn't undermine our intelligence. If we cannot speak the language very well, it doesn't undermine our intelligence. It's just a language. Okay, but talking about if we work overseas, yes, it can be also useful because English is used in order for us to understand each other. It's used as a lingua franca in some parts of the world, like here in Spain. When I go to a certain restaurant, if I cannot speak Spanish very well, I have to use English. Okay, that's it. And some people are very dismissive. Can I go back to the question, to the second
Yes,
question, sir?
yes, sir. Just a minute.
Because there is follow-up question. People are very dismissive of the language, yet quick to correct errors. Yes, you are right. This is actually the problem nowadays, especially with some teachers, because if someone, not only the teachers, but even in the social media, they tend to create memes. They tend to criticize people who commit errors in grammar. This is actually the problem nowadays because they think that if you speak language, if you speak English language, it has prestige. That's the problem there. So there is no superior language and inferior language. The most important thing there is that there is intelligibility. There is understanding with one another. Despite our different accents, even with the grammatical features, we should not correct the person. The most important thing there is that we understand each other. Intelligibility transcends more than that. Okay, thank you.
Sir, here is another one from the Kim. Actually,
From
Kim
Kimatina.
and actually, sir, I want to add one thing. The Kim and Nadia was two participants. There was a lot, but there were the two participants who are actively answering you while you were presenting and while you were asking the questions during the presentation. They were also answering you at that time as well. So the
Okay,
both are very much active. Kim and the other one was Nadia, I think.
okay.
Here is the question from Kim.
So here's the question from Kim Athena Roslinda. Awareness is a start and accountability is the key. Good on you for improve. Good on you. Oh, is that a question, right? Start is awareness is a start and that is a key. Good on you for improving, sir. Is this a question?
Has given, I think that she has given compliment.
I think it's a comment, no, from Kim, not a
Yes.
question anymore.
Sir,
If
here
this
is
is a
another.
compliment, thank you, Kim. One question from Shabas. Without multiculturalist approach, is possible to adopt the approach of multilinguistic approach. Without multicultural approach, is it possible to adopt the approach of multilinguistic approach. Actually, there are many approaches that we can use. Are you, maybe Shabas is talking about, correct me if I am wrong, maybe Shabas is talking about language teaching, the multiculturalist approach in language teaching. I do not know. Okay, we can still, um, how do we call this one? We can still foster um, multilingualistic approach in teaching without without multiculturalist approach, it's possible to adapt the approach of multicultural. Okay, maybe his point is about, is it possible to adapt the approach of multilinguistic approach? Okay, multilinguistic approach in language teaching is very much important. It's very crucial, especially if you teach with students who come from different cultures, come from different races, come from different countries. This is also one thing that you have to be very careful in the use of English language that would be understandable to one another. Something that is an expression or a language that is comprehensive to all, or a language that is simple to all. That's it. How do people use language to define themselves or to set themselves apart from others? Okay, because earlier I mentioned about, even if we speak the same language, it doesn't guarantee that we are united. So in response to Eman Guevara's question, how do people use language to define themselves or to set themselves apart from others? It's simple. Even if we use the same language, even if we use different language, the most important thing there is, first, we have the values of respecting one another first. We also have the value of understanding why he is implying this way, why he says it this way. We have to be very open-minded first. Why he uses this word? I don't understand him. You have to be very transparent. I'm sorry. Can you tell me what do you mean? Like that. So so that we will be united. We should be understanding with one another and understanding with the manner how language is used before we conclude something wrong. Yeah, from Ella May Dayon. Ella May Dayon is maybe a social studies teacher. What do you think about the use of English language upon the teaching of history, related subjects or courses? Should schools use local or native language instead of based in the country? Well, there are some curricular systems that use the native language in teaching history, and some also use English in teaching history. But for me, I don't have any problem about that, whether it be taught in the local language or it be taught in English language. However, there are some schools who are trying to raise their standard, especially in the reading comprehension among the students. That's why there is one country I don't have to mention. This country experiences a very low score in reading comprehension because when these students are asked to read some texts, the texts are about history and politics. It's not merely about narrative or any genres of literature like epic, short story, and poems. So for me, it's also important that history be taught in English, or it can be also taught in our native language. Both are important. What does it mean for language to be dynamic and homogeneous at the same time? Language is dynamic because it changes and we cannot avoid that. Language changes and we cannot control that because uh, people, the world is affected by continuing changes like the globalization, like with emergence of technology proliferation. So then the language also changes. For example, with the continuing onslaught of COVID-19 pandemic, we are already learning the word webinar. Before seminar, but now webinar. It's not even part of the dictionary yet, I think. And we already learned some words related to pandemic like social distancing, and then there are a lot of words emerge because of what happened right now. So language really evolves, and we cannot control that. Okay, however, there are still some people, in response to Princess, there are still some people nowadays who are thinking that uh, people who use slang or people who use new language, newly evolved language, are people who try to destroy the native language. Actually, it's not actually destroying the native language, because it's not their intention to destroy the native language because of the new language. Rather, we only try to be open on how language changes. But in order for us to keep the native language, we should have study about this, record this, and there are many things. Have this integrated in our lessons as well.
So, sir, this is all I think. There is no other question. Let me check once more. Yes, sir, there are no more questions from the participants. It was a very wonderful session with you, sir.
Thank
And
you so much. I would like to thank Sami. I would like to thank the participants for the questions, because from the questions I have also learned something from them. I would like to stress out that this webinar is not only my I don't have the power. The information doesn't only come from me. The knowledge doesn't only come from me. I don't have the monopoly of knowledge, but in fact, I have also learned a lot of things from you through your questions. So we are having reciprocal learning nowadays. So thank you so much for this opportunity as well.
thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So, to all of my participants, I am giving you 5 more minutes, and I am sending the feedback form again. You all can fill it to get the certificate. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
You
and God
can
bless us
leave
all.
with very much of honor from us, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Now I am sending you the feedback form link to all. That please fill that feedback form to get the certificate. Sorry, Miss Erika, your question is very much late. So, sir has gone. For the next time, get ready your questions and send them as soon as possible. Please fill the feedback form, click on the subscribe button, and like us on Facebook. We have another webinar on this Thursday. Hopefully, you will also join us there, which is on the personal growth and professional development. Sir Lisaya or Ma'am Lisaya, I don't know, but Sir has gone, so your questions can't be answered right now. Yes, those who want PPT presentation, they just message us on WhatsApp or email us on our official email ID universalwebinars@gmail.com. You all can join our WhatsApp group for asking questions, for remaining in contact with the speakers, for getting more knowledge from the professionals. You can join our WhatsApp group. The link of WhatsApp group is already available on the Facebook. What I will suggest you all that go on the Facebook, join us there, join our WhatsApp group, and subscribe our channel. We will have more webinars in upcoming days. We have 3 more in a row, which are very much planned. The one is going to be happen on this Thursday or Friday. Then the other one is on the 12th or the 13th May. Then the fifth one of the universal webinar will be on the 22 or the 23rd May. So I am sending the link. Last time, who haven't filled the feedback form, fill it, because this feedback form response will be accepted for the 10 minutes only. After 10 minutes, the link will not work for you. Thank you. Go and fill it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us here. Those who have filled the feedback form will definitely get the certificates within 1 week. Within 1 week, you all will be awarded with certificate through the email. I am last time sending the link again because some people are messaging me to send the link. So here is the link. Those who haven't filled the feedback form, kindly fill it because after a few minutes, the link will be not of the use. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Have a good day. Allah Hafiz. Thank you.